Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the host of the program. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most home sellers think that they should leave during showings, but how can home sellers show their homes for sale and keep full control over that process?
Well, Richard, this is the normal process, right? You put the home on the market. Most agents will tell the sellers, make it available all the time, whenever the buyers want to see it, whenever it's convenient for them, let them in, which, if you're living in the home, is not convenient. A lot of people are looking at homes after business hours, meaning it could be at night, right? Right now in the wintertime, it could be at night. They want to see the house because they want to see it when they get off work. A majority of the showings, though, do happen during the weekends, right? But the seller doesn't have to leave, and the seller doesn't have to give them limitless opportunity to view the home whenever they want. In fact, I think it's better to limit the showings to make it more concise. And I've had really good success the last couple of years holding them back until the time is convenient for the seller. But if you are home during the showing, I would recommend that you step out of the way, maybe go into the garage if you can. Don't engage in a conversation with the agent. You know, the agents, their job in their mind is to get intel to work against you if they do happen to make an offer, right? So they're on the other side of the transaction, even though most sellers are paying their commission. I I actually remember one a couple years back where we had a lot of people initially showing the house, and one agent showed up and the seller was home, and she confronted her and said, well, you're not supposed to be here and you can't talk to my buyer. And she just goes, well, I live here. And so the seller called me and said, am I not supposed to be in my own home? I'm like, of course you could be in your own home. You know, they're not entitled to have the house to themselves just because they scheduled a showing. That was inappropriate for that agent to say that. So a day or two later, another agent did the same thing and said, you're not supposed to be here while we're showing this house. And she looked at him and she goes, last I checked, my name is still on title.
Very good.
I was so proud of her.
Very good.
She got a backbone. Wouldn't put up with that. So agents do what they normally do, and there is really no training on how to show a house, right? So they just go out and go, all right, I'm going to open the door. And what I normally do is I have free reign of the house to walk around, talk about it and all this stuff. But it doesn't always go that way. So you make it work for you. I would just recommend that you don't hover over them while they're showing. Avoid disclosing every single flaw in the house. Don't even talk to them. If they're interested, you can direct them to your agent. And please don't disclose your motivation for selling, because the agents are really good at getting that intel out of you. Like, oh, are you moving to another state? Have you bought another house? All those things indicate to the buyer's agent that you're desperate, right? And you don't want that. So I would just stay out of their way. Even during inspections, I've had sellers that stayed home during the inspection, which is fine. It's their house. And they disclosed something that happened years before where there was a plumbing leak and they had to have the home professionally treated. They actually had everything fixed. They had mold test, remediation. So they disclosed all that to this buyer during the inspection. So what comes back on the report? The buyer, the new buyer, is demanding another mold test and another mold remediation, or they're not going to buy the house. And they ended up walking away from the deal. So the seller told me, he's like, I probably shouldn't have talked to him at all. I said, yeah, that's the best thing to do, is just not have a conversation with them. But you can certainly be home. If the inspector has a question about systems, you can answer the inspector. But you don't have to make the home available 24/7. And keep in mind, a majority of agents are connecting with alleged buyers based on some kind of online connection, either Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, whatever. They got a lead. And if they talk to this buyer, the buyer wants to see the house. The buyer doesn't want to meet the agent. They want to see the house. That's buyers want houses, sellers want buyers that buy houses, right? But they don't know if this buyer can buy the house. They have no idea. They haven't vetted. They're not even required to vet them. So the very first meeting is at the door. They don't know if they can buy a couch on Craigslist, let alone your house, right? That's why you might be getting feedback. Like, let's say you have a ranch style home. I've gotten this feedback before, actually, where a buyer, it was a more than $1 million listing. This agent showed it to this buyer, and the feedback was, well, the buyer wanted a 2-story. I'm like, what? Why were you there? It was a ranch. It wasn't a 2-story. It wasn't made up. So most of the time, these buyers have never met the buyer before. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't even know if they're qualified. They're just living in this, hope that maybe they could buy a house, right? And I don't really feel like the agents study the multiple listing service anymore. They don't even do any research until the buyer is somewhat interested in the home, and then they start asking questions. So they've already shown the home. But the seller's mentality is, oh, this is it. This scheduled showing, I'm going to get everything ready and get it ready to show, and I'm going to leave the house or whatever you're doing. And that buyer shows up and says, oh, well, no, I wanted a different type of floor plan, or I bought in a different area or something like that. So the way the system is actually built, there are about anywhere from 12 to 1,500 different multiple listing services in the country. I think this state might have at least 20 or 30 of them, right? All of these multiple listing services are kind of like realtor clubs, and these realtor clubs create a website where you can upload your listings, and then the listings get shared to all the tech company websites, Zillow, Realtor.com, and Homes.com, right? There are probably over 40,000 real estate agents in Colorado. And guess what? They're not going to be members of all 30 of the MLSs, right? So they're not going to have all the detail. All they do is call to get access to get in the door in the hopes that that buyer wants to buy that house. And then they ask. I recently had a listing in it's in a Black Forest neighborhood called Cathedral Pines. Beautiful, expensive neighborhood. This home had been listed with another agent at $2.4 million. And the seller fired that agent, who he affectionately called the teenager, because somebody had asked to view the house. The teenager agent didn't verify that the buyer had the ability to buy. And she met the buyer at the house. The buyer was walking through the home, and this particular home had a safe. And the buyer was only motivated to see the safe and nothing else, right? So the seller kind of took note of their name because he was there during the showing. That alleged buyer left, and turned out that guy just got let out of jail, right? So there was no vetting done by this real estate agent. Now, keep in mind, if that agent would have earned a 3% commission on that sales price, it's about a $72,000 commission. That's a lot of money, right? And she didn't even bother. In fact, I think in her mind, she'd already spent the commission check on something in her brain. So that's why he fired the teenage agent and hired me. And his rules to me were, nobody gets in the safe until after it's closed and I have my money. So I never got to see it. I would have liked to have seen it, but that's how it went. So now agents also don't supervise the showings. I'm just giving you all these hard facts of experience that I have been through in my practice. I've seen kids jumping on beds. I've seen them use the restrooms. I hate it when they use the restrooms and don't flush, especially on a winterized home. I've had them drop popcorn on the floor. I've had them leave doors unlocked. I've had them leave the correct combo code in the box and not flip the dial so anybody could get in. I've had them track snow in the house. I've had them let tag along buyers in the home, right? Buyers that they don't even know. Or I've had them a couple of times actually change the lockbox code when it was a hot property or a discounted property so that nobody else could get in. I had one really brilliant agent during COVID. She took the keys to the house and stuck it inside the service door and locked the door. So agents don't vet the buyers. Plus, they might go in the home and actually criticize the home. It's not worth that much. It won't qualify for financing, whatever. They also show up late, leave early, or fail to show up and fail to cancel their listing. So how do you deal with that as a seller? That is the question. Number one, I would get cameras inside and out. And that way you get really good, specific, clear feedback about what's happening with the showings, and you know what's going on within the house. And the other thing I would do is just make sure you restrict the rules to make it work for you. Don't make it terribly inconvenient for you, because there's 40,000 agents and there's just one of you, right? So if all of them want to show, you can't manage that with your schedule. You just want it to work correctly for you. And make sure you lock up your valuables, okay? And make a good impression when you are showing. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb, 719-301-3900, or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Now, Barb, you've got hot new listings coming up. Tell us about them.
I do. I have a couple of properties owned by the VA that are really good buys, under $200,000 out in Yoder on 35 acres. Another house up in Florissant for $260 on 2 acres with gorgeous views. I also have a great townhome in the southwest part of town at $299. Beautiful home on Meade Avenue at $325. Another couple of VA repos, one on Bramble at $365, and another up in Ridgeview of Stetson Hills on Cash Drive at $365. And our red hot listing for the weekend is 6635 Brook Park Drive, priced at $399. Gorgeous 4-bedroom, 3-bath in D20. A great home on 2395 Troy Court. And coming very soon, a fabulous home in Fairfax and Briargate that backs to open space on Stable Court at 539.9, and a hot fixer-upper at 367 on Harrington. Plus, we have a stunning home on 1 acre in D20 on Ross Drive, and many others. To find out about all of our coming soon homes, go to barbhasthebuyers.com and click on Feature Properties. Richard?
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb Schlinker, 719-301-3900, or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Remember, you can see replays of the show on Barb's YouTube channel, Barb Schlinker, or listen to the podcast on all of the popular platforms like Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, etc. Thank you for listening this week. Reach out to Barb, 719-301-3900. Barb, have a great 2026. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. You too.